I'm Lee Phillips. I'm a liar. Don't hold that against me. And this is Ben Rucker. Ben's my good friend. He actually heads up the tax stuff that we do around here. And Ben and I want to go through how to fill out a 2553. That's a Subchapter S election.
Right.
And the IRS is going to call it a Subchapter S corporation election. We'll talk about that. And we're going to walk through it step by step. And one of the assumptions that we're going to make is you're late filing this. That isn't uncommon. You've actually got 2 months and 15 days, they say, from the time that you start your little company to make this election. Nobody does, or a lot of people don't do that. Your accountant may be right on top of it, but you maybe didn't tell your accountant you started a little company. I'm just going to go through real quick. If you are getting what we call passive income, rents, royalties, that sort of thing, you want your LLC taxed as a partnership. If you're getting earned income, you're selling goods and services, you want it taxed under Subchapter S. And there are a lot of accounting and tax reasons for that, and we go through that in other videos. But you didn't make your election in 2 months and 15 days. And in fact, it's after the end of the year, and you go in and see your accountant before you file your taxes, you give everything to him, and he says, you should have had this be a sub S. Have you made the election? And you go, no. So Ben and I are going to walk you through how to manage that situation where you haven't actually made the election, but you probably should have made the election.
Lee, I've seen a lot of situations where I review tax returns from your students at the boot camps, and I look at it and I think, wow, you could have filed as an S corporation, saved yourself a lot of money. And they say, yeah, I know, my accountant told me that, but I was too late. I missed the deadline, so I will do it this year.
You missed the 2-month deadline.
Yeah, and they don't realize, very few accountants even realize you can make that retroactive election to the beginning of the year. And I tell them, man, if you would have come to us, we could have helped you do this.
You can actually make that election all the way up until you actually file your taxes, basically.
Right, yeah. We've had people that haven't filed in 2 or 3 years, and we've been able to still make that election 2 or 3 years back. As long as you haven't filed the tax return, sometimes we'll get your students and they'll say, hey, I want to go back and change it. It's like, well, once you've already filed the return, it's too late. You can't make that late election if it's already been filed. So that's an important note to make.
That's a note. And by the way, I didn't really tell you, Ben isn't an accountant. Ben's a tax guy. He's an enrolled agent. He spent 8 years with the IRS as a special agent, special auditor's agent, working with he's audited thousands of tax returns. And Ben came to me a few years back and said, you know, I'm have enough fun with the IRS. Let's do something else. So Ben and I have been working together, and Ben knows what he's talking about. So even if your accountant said you can't do this, yes, you can do this. Let's get going then, shall we?
Yeah, let's. Okay, so I guess this first page right here, generally, what most people are going to do is you're going to attach this election to the front page of your tax return. But if you want to fax it in or mail it in, if you pull up the instructions for the form, depending on where you live, this is where you mail it, these 2 areas, and those are the fax numbers. And everyone always gets confused by the address because they're like, hey, it doesn't have a street name. Well, the IRS is that big. In Ogden, there's no street name, and same for Kansas City. All the post office doesn't need an address.
Right where the IRS
Everyone's
is.
Always like, I'm missing part of the address. So, all right, let's start at the.
Now wait a minute. You said something. I'm going to attach, assuming I haven't done it within 2 months and 15 days. I'm going to actually attach this to my tax return when I send it in April 15th, or if I extend. Even if I extend, I can still do this, right?
Yeah, and there's some procedures to doing that. So let's go through that.
Okay.
But if you're going to mail it on time, that's how you do it right there.
That's what you're going to do.
That's another video, but let's look at the return and see or the form and see what it actually looks like and see what things you have to do.
I'm going to blow that up a little for us.
If you look at the top of the return of this form, Lee, scroll up a little bit. Do you see how it says filed pursuant to Rev Proc 2013-30?
Now that's not on the form though.
No, I added that, and you need to include that.
So you need to type that across the top.
Yeah,
of
or
it?
handwrite it, and that's saying, hey, I'm following the procedures the IRS is allowing for me to file this election late. If you don't have that, they'll reject it and say it's late. We're going to make you an S corp starting next year, right?
Okay, so I've got to notify them up front that this is a late election.
Right. So you can do that there, and then we've highlighted all these yellow fields that you need to complete, and these are all self-explanatory. The thing is that you need to do is you need to say on the year, okay, right there, this is an important box, box E. It says election is to be effective for tax year beginning, month, end. It says year, day, and year. So you're going to put, if you started your corporation that year, your LLC, you're going to put that date as a date you want it to be effective, okay?
So right there. Now that's not necessarily the date I filed the company with the state. In fact, when you got your EIN number, and we have a video on how to do your EIN number, when you got your EIN number, it asks you what the effective date was. And that's not the day you file necessarily, but the day you think you're going to start making money.
Well, that's the date it was it's used. Okay, in box B there it says date incorporated, right? You can't have that date there. And box, what box was that? E? Is that what box we're on?
Yeah, we're on box E.
You can't have the box E be earlier than the date in box B.
That's true.
So
that's
you can't
true.
go sooner than that. Now,
But it can be later.
it can be later. And normally what will happen, you'll either want that on January 1st of the year you want this effective date, or you want it to be the date it was incorporated if the business was incorporated that year. Am I making sense on that?
If I've incorporated it this year and haven't made any money, I can have it effective for next year.
Yeah, but what we're talking about is a late election. We want to file it now.
Okay.
So let's say right now you set up your corporation in March 1st of this year.
And I've been doing business.
Been doing business. So we would want to make this effective March 1st in box E. Let's say you set it up last year and you're like, Ben, I filed last year the way I did it. This year I want to make it an S corporation. In that case, you would make that date January 1st of this year.
Of this year. Okay.
Makes sense? All right. And box F, select the tax year. It's almost always going to be calendar year. It's very rare the IRS even approves fiscal year S corporations. Frankly, I don't like fiscal years because then you're trying to keep track. As an individual, you're always on a calendar year. You can't have a fiscal year individual return. And what we mean by fiscal year is you start any date besides January 1st. So calendar year is January 1st to December 31st. If it's fiscal year, you may say, okay, I'm going to start March 1st and end March 1st. That's a fiscal year. It's not count.
Yeah, but you can basically only do that for a Chapter C corporation.
It's hard. You could do it for an S, but you have to have reasons. It's very complicated. I marked that yellow for a reason. Check that box, stay on calendar year. Okay. The rest is also self-explanatory. Now, you have to provide the IRS a reason, a reasonable cause for filing late. This is a common reason that we see and use.
That's under I.
Under I. That's a common reason that we use. It's a valid reason, and I've never had the IRS.
So you've typed that in.
Yeah, I've typed that in. So you'll have to.
Information necessary to make an informed decision. The information necessary to make an informed decision about the entity's status was not available.
Yeah, in time to make a timely election. So I've never seen the IRS deny this based on that language and that reason, and that's a perfectly valid reason.
But they will deny it on other reasons. I mean, if you just put something willy-nilly in there, they may not.
Absolutely, they will.
Okay.
So the legal representative, by the way, in H will usually be you, and put your phone number there. So keep scrolling down, Lee. Then you're going to sign. Now, something else I did is I wrote president in there.
And I argued with him.
Yeah, you argued with me.
I'm going to tell you that today, just legal shoot from the hip sort of thing, you shouldn't be using a corporation. You should be using an LLC. The LLC has better asset protection. It gives you flexibility that you can't get in a corporation legal structure for taxes. So the 95% of the time you're going to use an LLC, not a corporation. But you might notice that the instructions and everything when you file as 2553, the IRS says it's a corporation. You're doing an S corporation. And it never says SLLC. It never says just election under Subchapter S. It says S corporation. And people talk about LLCs as S corporations all the time. They're not corporations legally structured. They're LLCs legally structured. So you're caught between the IRS's not being awake enough to figure out that you don't have a corporation, you have an LLC. And frankly, the IRS doesn't know whether you've got a corporation or an LLC, and they don't care. All they know is that you've made this election and you're filing your tax returns based upon the rules of Subchapter S. So, Ben, why did you put president?
The IRS, they don't have an LLC tax return. And those agents don't know what member managed or managed member. They don't know what that means.
They don't know what a manager is.
If you call them and you say, I'm a member,
they'll go, duh.
Yeah, they're confused. So for an S corporation, the owner is referred to as the president. And for a partnership, you're referred to as a partner representative. So I put president there. Leave that there if you're the owner of the company.
Even if you've got an LLC, yes, we're smart enough to know you're not president, you're a manager. LLCs don't have presidents, but the IRS isn't smart enough to figure that out. And if you put manager there, they reject it sometimes.
Right. All right, so let's go to page 2.
Come on, page 2.
So again, you're going to have to, every shareholder needs to write, you have to complete their information, and every shareholder needs to sign and date this. Now, if you notice here, it says number of shares or percentage of ownership. Those better all equal 100%, or you're going to get rejected, okay? And the date acquired those shares is generally, if you're the only owner most of the time, that's going to be the date that you incorporated. So it's going to be the same date as box B on that front page?
I think it was box E.
Box B. Same as box B, okay? B.
Box B up there.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
So that could be different than E.
Right.
But it's going to be the
Box
date
B.
the date you actually filed.
Then sign date, social security number, shareholders tax year ends. So if you're an individual, you're going to put 12/31. You're on a calendar year basis. Now, this form has 2 other pages involved. There's 4 total. Unless you're a trust or a corporation, complicated, you're not going to include page 3 or 4 or even attach those to your return. I'd say less than 1% of our clients that we do this for, we use page 3 and 4. Probably even less than that. You're going to have another video on that, though, right?
We are going to have another video because I'm going to tell you that if you have a little company, a little LLC or a little corporation, you need to have that ownership, the membership or the stock, held in the name of your trust. That way the family doesn't have to probate this thing when you die. Well, if it's a trust, the IRS wants to look at it. Well, they don't really look at the trust, but they want you to tell them under Part 3 of this form that it's a Sub-S qualified trust. They call it a QSST. And the trust has to meet certain criteria. Basically, the issue is the IRS under Subchapter S isn't taxing the entity, the corporation or the LLC. It's actually taxing the individuals. And I have to have a trust where the individual that's going to get this income is clearly identified. So they've put out, I think it's 6 criteria that the trust has to meet, and most living trusts do meet it. The trust has to meet these 6 criteria in order to actually claim ownership in a Subchapter S entity, corporation or LLC. So that's what they're looking for under this Part 3. Back up in this section where we identified the owner, if you put the owner's name and address as the trust, the John Doe Trust, under agreement, UA 102223 or whatever it is, and you have to have your name, John Doe Trustee. So 3 parts to the name of trust, date of trust, trustee. And if you've put that up there as the owner, which you should, then we're going to have to fill out this section down here under section 3 and say, no, we're a qualified Subchapter S trust, we're good, you can identify us, and these are the names of the guys who you're going to actually bill.
So Lee, if a trust isn't currently owner of the LLC, it's probably best to complete this form the way we've just shown, and then after the S Corp election, modify the operating agreement and then make the owners the trust. Could you do that?
So you're going to file another
No, you don't have to file
2553?
No, you file that once. I'm accepted as an S corporation. Then okay, so for example, I set up a business. I'm the owner and my wife is the owner, okay? We're both individuals. We completed this form very simply. But let's say we talk to you now and we decide, you know what? We actually want to have a trust set up. Can I transfer my shares to the trust?
Yes, you're going to amend your operating agreement. Usually in the operating agreement, it says who the members are and what percentage they get. You're going to, and we've got a video out on how to put an LLC into a trust. You're going to amend the operating agreement. You're going to say that the trust is now the owner of 85% of the shares or whatever it is, not you. And I hope that you've actually issued stock certificates, membership certificates, and you've got a stock log, a membership log, and you're going to cancel that membership certificate or stock certificate that you gave yourself in the beginning, and you should be doing this in order to protect your corporate shield. Got to prove this is a real company. If it's a real company, IBM, I want my stock certificate. So you should be issuing your stock certificates. You cancel that one, you cancel it on the log, and you issue stock certificate number 3 to the trust, 85% owner.
So in that scenario,
do I have to come back?
No, because once you're accepted as an S corporation, you're accepted as an S corporation. You don't have to go back and fill this out again. If you're already accepted to tax as an S corporation, you file another one, the IRS is going to say, "What are you doing? You're already an S corporation."
The IRS isn't going to care as long as they can see that the money that came into the company was taxed to the individual owners of the company. And as long as the IRS gets their tax, they're pretty happy.
So let's go, okay, so we're going to ignore page 4 and 5 because it's just my wife and I that are owners. So go to 5. Okay, now, there's one last thing you need to do.
This is if I'm filing late.
If you're filing late, so we had the language that goes on top of the Form 2553. You've also got to write this on the top of your business tax return that you're filing, and then you attach this form to the front of it. And if you file electronically, you can also still do this.
So I'm going to file, what is it, 1120S?
1120S, which is an S corporation.
That's the S Subchapter S tax return form.
You're going to write that on the top of that.
So I'm just going to type it on the top of it.
Yeah, write it on the top of the form. And then you're going to attach Form 2553, page 1 and 2, to the front of that return. And you're also going to have that language on the top of the return as well. And I just realized, Lee, I'm not looking at the camera very much because we're looking at this document.
Yeah, we're looking at the document. Sorry about that. We're actually pretty personable.
Anyways, that's what you do. The IRS will send you a letter and tell you that, hey, we've accepted your late S election or your
So I'm going to get a letter.
you'll get a letter and it'll say it's effective this date and it should match your form. Sometimes these guys there, they don't know how to read very well and they'll put the wrong date and you've got to call them, and it's kind of a lot of work to get it resolved, but sometimes they do that.
So you'll get a letter, match it up with what you've said
Right.
on the form. Usually it's okay.
The fun part is they say, call me if you have any questions.
Yeah, good
There's a
luck.
phone
You're on
number.
hold for 10 years.
No, it goes straight to a voicemail, and the person will never call you back. You could leave them 8 voicemails. They'll never call you back, and they'll never answer their phone. I don't even know why they put that on the form.
So what do I do? Just dial a regular IRS number?
You just take that form and you fax it to that number
Oh,
on the
okay.
front.
And say this needs to be corrected?
Yeah, say, hey, I got this letter. Here's what I filed. So we'll save that, I guess, for another video, right? That way we have a series to these.
I don't know.
But the coolest part is you can file late.
Ben actually owns a tax firm, and if you need help with your taxes and stuff, he takes on some clients. You can get him at the link below so that you can ask him. In fact, give us comments, and we'll answer the comments and answer your question if you have a question. You're going to get this tax form at the irs.gov. Just go irs.gov and type in 2553 and it'll come right up.
Or just go to Google and type in Form 2553 PDF, and on the search, when you see IRS in the URL, you'll know you're at the right spot.
Okay, so that's where you're going to get this form. So Ben, let's just give them a link to the form in the description here. Okay,
that works.
And you guys can get the form, and then we're going to walk you through it so that you know exactly what to do on each one of the questions.
All right. Good job.
Good job.